Hey guys, Zambina here. Welcome back to another speed build video, and I'm so glad that you're here for this kind of different build. This is a recreation of the Goldshire Inn from World of Warcraft. So this inn is in the Elwynn forest area right outside the main alliance hub of Stormwind. And I've been playing a lot of Warcraft lately. I've been really getting into it. I've actually been getting into the end game for the first time in my life. Not that I've played a lot of it before, but for the first time I'm actually properly getting into it. And I thought, why not combine the two games I'm currently playing the most and build something from the game as one of my speed builds. So that's what I'm doing right now. This is quite a short build because it's not super duper detailed. And the reason for that is it's hard to get all the things that are in the actual Goldshire Inn in the game without mods. I think there's a lot of old-fashioned stuff, like things that would be hard to get even with the debug menu. At least that's how I saw it, really. But I've been trying to recreate it to the best of my ability. I went in the game, I got some screenshots that I've just been referring to throughout building it. And it is a bit weird and off in its proportions, but that's just due to the difference in proportions between games. Like, you know, World of Warcraft is not going to have the same proportions in stuff as Sims does, and Sims has weird proportions to begin with. So, especially the upstairs, I think the room on the right on the upstairs, it's not looking the same as it does in WoW. It's kind of a weird shape. No, it's not a weird shape, it's just a different shape than it is in the actual game. But, you know, I had to live with that, because if I didn't do it like that, the rooms upstairs would have been absolutely huge and ridiculous looking in The Sims. It kind of works in WoW because you have to have space to walk in there and things like that, and it kind of works for the general look of the game. In Sims, doesn't work that well. It just looks off. My biggest struggle with this lot, at least initially, was what type of lot to make it. Now, sadly, we do not have hotel-type lots unless we have mods, which I will not use because I'm uploading this to the gallery. Then my second thought was a restaurant or a pub. But in the end, I ended up going with a generic lot, just a generic public lot, and I think that was the best decision because I don't have any requirements doing a generic lot. And if I did something like a restaurant or a pub, there would have been a lot of requirements, like kitchen requirements, bathroom requirements, that would have forced me to put in more modern looking stuff. Even the off-grid stuff would have looked a little bit out of place here, I think. And that wouldn't have looked right. The requirements would have forced me to put things in here that would have just kind of ruined the aesthetic of it. Like, something like that could probably work for a modern remake of this place, but that wasn't what I was going for. I was going for as close to the actual game as possible. So the generic lot was really the best option, and I'm happy I went with that. This is not really intended to be a super, like, functional lot. There's not really a lot to do here. It's just more the fact that I recreated something from a different game that I'm really loving at the moment. Like, there's no bathroom in here. There's no real way to get food or anything. It's just there's a bar and there's some beds upstairs and some bookcases and things like that. It's just meant to kind of look cool / nice / whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be real and say that the exterior was probably the hardest part. Just trying to get the right look going with the limited stuff we have in The Sims for this kind of look. Like, we do have stuff that looks old and like old-fashioned and kind of handmade and things like that. Like that floor from Jungle Adventure, there was never any question. Of course it was going to be that one because it's perfect and I love it. But just in general, trying to get the right look for the outside, especially with the windows. I think the windows was my biggest struggle. And you will see I put a door at the front. I do change it to an arch. I changed it to an archway to kind of just stay more true to the original looking game. If you've never played World of Warcraft before, there are no doors in that game, or at least not very many, at least not ones that you go through. It's all just archways. Like places like this where you actually go in and there's functions for the players to do. There'd be no doors, it's just archways. The main place you'll see actually opening doors are in dungeons and raids and such, not in inns like this. But I have finally started to work on the interior a bit and just working on the main room, which is the seating area with tables and the bar and the big fireplace, things like that. And I do have the basement. I have the basement in there. There will be some big barrels in there. Try to keep it as authentic as I can. Also swap out the stairs for some different ones. Non-hovering ones for the main room. Still hovering ones for the basement. Because that's what it looks like. And I do realize that I have messed up something on the upper floor. I'll get to that when we get up there. But I fix it. It's easily fixable. And it was hard for me to find tables and chairs that I was happy with because like the furniture in WoW, it kind of unique looking. Like it's not something that you're going to easily find replicated in a game like this again, unless you have mods. But I do not use mods anymore. I used to use so much mods. I had so much custom content. But once I started uploading builds to the gallery, I just removed it, and I ended up just removing all my Create a Sim CC as well, and I've just not looked back really. I have some building mods like Tool and the OMSP Shelf and Better Build and Buy, but those do not affect the gallery uploads, so they're just there to make my life easier. And this barrel prop is, I think it's from Get Famous, because it's, as I said, meant to be a prop. I use that so much in this build. We do have a lack of barrels in The Sims, which is fair enough, because that's not really something you use a lot in The Sims, but it also makes it a bit harder to recreate the authentic look of the Goldshire Inn the way it actually looks in WoW, because there's quite a lot of barrels kicking about. But I've had to improvise, and, you know, there's some debug items, especially in the kitchen. There's quite a lot of debug going on in the kitchen. Well, quite a lot, an amount, not a ridiculous amount. And just kind of try to improvise with these bottles that are cooking bottles, not alcohol bottles. But I know I'm definitely not the only one who used them as props to look like alcohol bottles. Definitely not. And me putting a bunch of crates and stuff in the back there, that was just me being unsure of what actually existed in the room. Like, I was like, do I need these? Are these going to be useful for me for like decorating and cluttering and trying to fill up the room? In the end, only a few of them were. Like, they look a bit too modern. Like, especially those with, like, the metal on the corners. Like, they look too modern. Like, I removed those. But it was just me going through the debug menu and trying to find things that might be helpful to me. Because I knew that there wouldn't be a whole lot of stuff that would be helpful to me for decorating this. I would have to pick and choose quite a bit. I say the debug menu, but I've got the Better Build and Buy by Twisted Mexi. So the debug menu is also the normal menu, but you know what I mean. But yeah, a lot of the clutter I just kind of had to improvise, had to just go for a general look. And I think it worked out well. I think, you know, I wasn't planning on doing like a complete one-by-one recreation. It was me trying to be as close as possible while still accepting that there are limitations in this game without mods. And I cannot make it look exactly like a build or a building in another game. But I think I got the spirit of it. Like, I think I managed to recreate the aesthetic pretty well. And now I'm starting to work on the kitchen area. And the reason that there is, like, an empty one-tile room beside the stairs, just a closed-off bit, is because of the way the basements work in Sims. So if I had made the basement completely the same size as the kitchen, the ground outside of the kitchen would have risen up and covered up the foundation, because that's just how basements work. Like, if you put them under a house and if they line up with the outer wall of the house, they're going to mess up the ground outside, and it's really annoying, and I don't like how it looks. So I made the basement just one tile smaller than the kitchen room, because I mean I had to, otherwise I would not have enjoyed how it came out on the outside. So the basement's pretty tiny, and that's why I'd done that with the stairs, just so it could look semi-authentic, semi like it does in game, because the stairs are up against the wall in the actual game. So I just wanted to try and make it look as close as I could, basically. I was also quite limited in the lighting I wanted to use. I didn't want to use just the saucer light, because that would not look as it looks in game. It would be way too bright and white of a light to use in this. I used to for just building because it's easier to see, but after that I needed to, you know, put something a little bit more fitting in. And I used one of the chandeliers that we have with actual candles, although I'm not sure if those are meant to be electrical candles or not. To be honest, I'm not sure, but my other options, they were a little bit too gothic, not wooden, rustic enough. And I did consider the prop chandelier from Get Famous, but it's so huge, and even if you size it down, it hangs really low. Like, there's two, and even the smaller one was too big. I was like, nah, it'll have to be these. I think they work. And as you can see, I am now onto the upstairs. And speaking of the thing I messed up upstairs, I had divided off the wrong room. I thought it was the corner room that was divided off into two, but it was in fact the right side room. But I have fixed that. It was a quick and easy fix. I do fiddle around with the right side room quite a bit. And I think the reason for that is in the actual game, in WoW, the way it works is that room actually goes out and onto the back roof. Like you can see to the right there, the room would continue out that way and be much longer and have a bit of different window placement. But the way Sims works with proportions, the other rooms would have had to be absolutely huge and hall-like for that to work. And it would not have looked good at all. It would have just looked really weird and really off. So I instead decided to make the room or rooms on the right a bit smaller, a bit more cramped than they are in the actual game. But for me, that was better than to try and make them all ridiculously huge. Like in Sims, it's very easy, at least for me, to make rooms too big because you feel like you need it to fit everything in. At least that's what I experience sometimes, and that's just a bad habit left over from my days of building boxes full of hall-like huge box rooms. And it was horrible. And I have some bad habits left over from that, and I will admit that. But regardless, I am just doing the last bits of clutter just now. I am adding some debug pieces of meat and packages looking things into the kitchen just because, you know, there's just a bunch of meat on that table. I don't know why those two stone tables are different colors, by the way. They are the exact same swatch, and yet they look different, and I don't know why. Sometimes in Sims, it be that way. Sometimes it be that way, and we just have to live with it because I don't know how to fix it. So I don't know if there's a way to fix it. And now I'm finally starting to work a bit on the exterior. The exterior is not that complicated. It's just some barrels, some trees, and some grass. I do put down a scarecrow right at the front, and that's my way of trying to emulate the stable master because there's no other real way for me to do that. So I thought I just want to have something humanoid-like standing there to kind of emulate the stable master. There's a stable master that hangs out there, right? I think so. There's some horses there, so I assume so. And just adding some terrain paint for dimension and realism, which I like doing. I don't always remember doing it. But we are going to be coming up on the screenshots very, very soon. This build is fully playtested and available on the gallery. My ID is Zambina, and all the information is in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any thoughts on this build, I would love to hear them in the comments below. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!